Welcome to the Side Hustlepreneur Podcast, where business, faith, and inspiration connect to all things side hustle related. My name is Faye, aka the Side Hustlepreneur, and I created this platform for everyday individuals like you to learn how to monetize your God-given skills and talents. So gather around, turn up the volumes, and let's get started. What's going on, Side Hustle family? It's Faye here, aka the Side Hustlepreneur, and we are back with March's guest of the month. As you guys know, every second Wednesday of the month, we highlight one person, one woman entrepreneur who is out here killing it. And last month, we talked about building wealth through home ownership. And I realized that, you know what? Not everybody necessarily wants to buy a house right now. But there are other ways for you to be able to tap into that housing market and still generate revenue. So I'm so excited for today's guest because she is out here killing it. Like last month I talked about, Kashana having the keys, but she got the keys too, but she got the keys in a different way. Okay. So I need y'all to go ahead and grab your notebooks or your notes from your iPhone, Android, whatever it is. And Breanne is going to talk to us about short-term rentals today. So, hey girl, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. I've had a phenomenal day, and I'm looking forward to spending the next few minutes with you.
That's awesome. I'm excited to have you here. So quick backstory. I met Bree at the ROI Summit in January. We're both part of a women's group, which I've talked about being a part of ending of last year. And so I met her at the summit, and she was hosting this workshop on short-term rental. And I was like, I've been thinking about this for a long time. So she seems like the perfect person for me to be able to just kind of learn a little bit more and ask questions. And she did just that. And you dropped all the gems and gave all the information. And I was so grateful because you were very honest and straightforward about everything. So thank you for coming on the show and, just being willing to share with my audience, what you shared with me. So, yeah. So as you know, we talked about this. I do not read bios, but I like for people to just go ahead and hype themselves up because I really believe that it is important for us to brag on ourselves no matter how uncomfortable it is. So would you go ahead and tell everybody who you are?
Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Breanne, and I am, first and foremost, a fiance.
Yes, come on, fiance.
Um, so my fiance and I, we are in the wedding planning process. It's very exciting just thinking about our new future and what is ahead of us. And while we do think about, of course, the wedding, a lot of what we're also considering is okay, what kind of reality are we going to build for ourselves and for our future family? And so we're very big on, of course, doing what we need to do now, but also ensuring that we are planting seeds. And one of those seeds that we are planting financially is in entrepreneurship. And so back in 2021, I started my Airbnb business, short-term rental business. You'll hear me say those interchangeably. Got my LLC in 2021 and took a little minute for me to be on the train with God. Like God was like, girl, come on. And I was like, oh my God, this is a lot. I'm scared. But this has definitely been a true faith journey for me. So yes, got my LLC middle of 2021, actually started my business and got my first unit in January of 2022. Took 2022 to scale to 10 units, hit six figures in November, and now I'm on my way to my goal of $500,000 by the end of 2023. This has taught me the power of delegation. It's taught me the power of scaling. It's taught me the power of truly believing in God and what He has promised and knowing that He wouldn't take me this far to leave me here. And that is a daily reminder I got to give myself. But yes, that is me on the entrepreneurial side. I also have a 9 to 5, which I have had for the past 6 years now, almost 6 years now, yes. But through having that 9 to 5, I've always had several side hustles. This is the one that has truly been scalable. It's felt purpose driven, and it's something that I know will help not just build revenue now, but create generational wealth for me to be able to provide, for my future family to come. So that's that. That's love. That's business. That's 9 to 5. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. Um, I'm in my house. I bought a house in 2020, rented it out the first floor. I was like, let me test out this market real quick in 2020. I'm sorry, 2021 is when I rented out my first floor, and we just kept getting bookings after bookings. And I was like, oh, like all these people in my house. We need to move
Yeah,
to the apartments. So
relatable.
yes, yes, that's where we are now in life.
I love that. I feel like there's a lot to unpack there. You talked about one, this isn't your first business, but this is the one that you felt that was most sustainable. Two, listening to God and God really pulling you along. So this is like a God thing, not just a you thing. Three, building generational wealth through this whole process, and not just for yourself, but with you being a new fiance, you guys
Yeah.
both sharing that vision and being able to say, okay, this is what we're going to do and this is our plan. That's amazing.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about this going from 1 unit to 10 units within 1 year and hitting six figures and being on your way to 500,000. But I mean, child, yeah, it's a lot, but a lot of good things. So
Yes.
let's kind of step back a little bit and let's talk about well, actually, not even how did you get started? Talk about what exactly is short-term rental, or what is rental arbitrage for those people who don't even know what that is or have never heard of it.
Yeah. So rental arbitrage is basically the business model where instead of you buying units or buying houses to rent for short term, you're essentially leasing houses or leasing apartments to that long term. So like you're thinking 12 plus months, and then you're renting it out short term for any amount of days, weeks, or months. And so I came across this back in 2020 when I was watching EYL. We were bored in the house, EYL, 8 p.m., Market Mondays, every single Monday. And Alexia Wright was on there talking about how she was in her early 20s, had this Airbnb business, didn't have to buy property. I was like, you said what now? And I'm like, so I'm, of course, researching her. They had her on the podcast again in 2021, and I was like, all right, we might have to make some moves here. So, um, yeah, that's how I started learning about it, and then I ended up investing in a coach. Bought a pretty expensive course, but it taught me everything I needed to know. So I'm like, yeah, I think that course was 3,000. So I've more than 35 it or something
Yes,
like that. So
absolutely.
yes,
Absolutely. So it was worth it. It was
yes, it was
definitely
worth
worth
it.
it. So what made you say, because I know you talked about that, you first started off with having like renting out in your house, right?
Hmm.
And so then you decided to kind of shift. But my question is, what was it that made you say, okay, let's try the short term rental instead of, hey, let's go buy another property and, do an Airbnb through that?
It's crazy. I don't think I shared this with anyone really, but so we bought our house in 2020. By the time, by the time the end of 2021 hit, we had built up enough equity where I took out some equity out of the house
Mm-hmm.
and refinanced. And I was at a point then where I could have leveraged that money for a down payment for a new home.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, I had seen the power of scaling with the rental arbitrage model where yes, you could have the beauty of a house where you're both taking the long term equity and you're also taking the short term revenue that you're getting in month by month. But I don't know. I think I was still overcoming the shock of like how much it costs to buy a house and then put some furniture in that house and make sure it's insured. And, it was just like, and then the HOA continues to be like, just kidding. Here's another 50, here's another 100. And so I was like, you know what? Let me just go this apartment route because on top of all of that, with apartments, what I love is that you don't have to worry about maintenance. So if there's like, for example, my cleaner sent a report out that one of the bathroom tubs was clogged this morning.
Mhm.
So I have my EA fill out the work order, let the maintenance people at the apartment know, hey, buddy, we got something that needs to be cleaned. They unclog that joint, and I will never see any of the hair or anything that was in there.
See,
So, just
man.
all of those things.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, it made it easier because it's like if you're renting through an apartment, for instance, they already have like the people who are there to fix it. They have the plumbers, they have everything. So it's not
Mm-hmm.
like you're like, hey, let me go contract so and so to kind of go do this work for me or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it just kind of made it more easier. Okay,
Yeah.
so
And I'll add one thing real quick.
yeah, go ahead.
So the startup costs are very different from when it comes to buying a house, furnishing a full house versus renting. So with renting, you're really only focusing on your, of course, like all the furniture, which for a one bedroom is depending on whether you're going the budget or luxury route, around 5,000.
Right.
And then you're worrying about the security deposit, um, the application fee, the admin fee, and then maybe the first month's rent, depending on like what you can negotiate. So with the amount of money that I could have put towards one down payment,
Yeah.
I was able to get 2 units off the bat and then have additional funds saved for the next acquisition that I did a few months later.
And that makes sense because as somebody who purchased a home last year, I can absolutely understand just the idea of like purchasing again back to back. Like,
Back to
of course, some
back.
people do it, but it's like, it's a lot. Like, I think it took me a while to recover. My husband was just like,
Yes.
all right, let's buy this, let's buy that. And I was like, listen, I just want to see my money in my account for a second,
Okay.
like, so no, I completely understand that. So you go ahead and you move from, you're renting out in your home. And then from moving from your home, you're like, you know what? I don't really want people in my house. Let me try a unit. You get this one unit, then you get 2 units. By the end of the year, you're at 10 units.
Mm-hmm.
What gave you the boost of confidence to say after unit one to be like, okay, I think I'm on to something. I got this. Like, let's start building. Like, what was that? What did that look like?
It was really the reassurance that my market research was correct in that I was constantly booked to the point where like I had to turn people away. And when I got to that realization with those first two, I had travel nurses and intentionally marketed towards travel nurses, was within 10 minutes of the biggest hospital out here. And when I realized like, crap, I need to go get some more units. So then in July, I got 3 more, and those immediately got booked to the point where August came around, and all 5 of them were booked with travel nurses with um, 13 weeks plus contracts. So
Wow.
then I was like, okay, let me do some more market research and figure out like where I can expand in the greater Raleigh area. And so the cool, but to some people scary thing about this is it's really all trial and error. So it's like, let me do my market research. Let me see that the demand makes sense. Let me make sure that there isn't oversaturation of supply. And those are the two driving factors. If the demand is there, but the supply is exceeding demand to the point where the current hosts are not getting booked, that tells me that unless I have like a crazy, like, um, I guess unique space that stands out where people are like, I want that one,
Yeah.
I could run into issues with like that, the competition that's already, running the field. So yeah, it's like, I think if I ran into an issue where I wasn't booked, then I would be like, okay, let me pivot cities or let me pivot going from 1 bedrooms to maybe 3 bedrooms. Um, and so, yeah, once I continue to, and now I'm at the point now where my units are booked, and I'm like, dang, is it time? But with each acquisition, I've learned like hire the handyman, hire the professional photographer. And now that I've hired my EA, hire the person to go get all the furniture and get all the decor, mostly the decor. Like I'm not about to have her, take me
Yeah.
down to Charlotte to get something from IKEA, but it's now I've put systems in place where I have a full blown spreadsheet for her to just run to at home. I can go ahead and purchase everything online, and it's just a matter of her picking it up, unboxing it, putting it in place for where the handyman needed.
I love that. So I mean, you've clearly built some steps as you've gone between, of course, doing it yourself for the first, that first unit and, being the handyman and doing all the steps and now being at unit 10, you're like, oh, okay, your toilet's clogged. Hey, can you submit this work paper? Like
Mm-hmm.
it's just kind of like a thing that just has like a structure and flow. So would
Yeah.
you consider short-term rental something that is like passive income? Would you say that it requires a lot of time? Like, what does that look like? Are people contacting you regularly? Like, hey, I have this question. Like, are you investing a lot of time into what it is, into the short-term rental?
I will always keep it real with people. And this may mean that I don't sell to people who want the answer that they want to hear, but this is not passive. I do think that you can get to a place where it's more passive, where, for example, now I have cleaners who take care of all of the in between refilling inventory in each unit, all of that. I have an EA who deals with now all of my reviews and my resolutions and, you know, having the conversations with the leasing agents, making sure background checks are done and all of that. But I still, end of the day, like I still have to be in in the business to some extent where I have to navigate the pricing strategy. Yes, there's software out there, but um, it's not like a stock where like you see that Microsoft or Apple's down to 150 and you're like, oh, this is a long-term investment. I'm gonna just buy 1,000 shares and hold it for the next
Yeah.
10 years. It's not like that. It takes work. I'll say when I first started, I got to give credit to my fiance. He was running around town in that U-Haul with me when I was first like, ooh, I'm about to go on Facebook Marketplace. I'm gonna get all of my stuff on there. Skirt, skirt. No, that was dead. It was cute for the first one, but being like, oh wait, there's this TV. Can we go now? Like it was a lot.
Yeah.
I also have to give credit to my sister and her boyfriend at the time where they helped me put together like the first few beds that we had in our first units and um, once you'll at first it's a lot of work like to get those first few up. When you can hire it's a lot less work, but it's not something where like you just start the business and a few months later you never have to log into the Airbnb platform or you never have to handle a case with a guest unless you hire a co-host, and that's again like another expense where you have to hire out. So
Right. And so, what would you say about, because you talked about, having the contractor, somebody who's like, again, having the handyman, the plumber, just everything, even furnishing, as far as like
Mhm.
furnishing the units. What would you say how much does somebody need to get started if they did want to get into short term rental? What's like a good estimate?
I always tell people around 5,000 for a one bedroom, and then for every additional bedroom, add on about $2,000. Um, and so that is with the expectation that you're not going to, like West Elm, you're not buying your stuff from like our house. Like we're not talking $5,000 couches here. We're talking maybe $1,000 couch or so. That's a sturdy one that's going to last, but it's not like, something that you'd buy for your forever home.
Right.
So yeah, that's been the ballpark that I've seen with like my calculations when it comes to. I actually have nine one bedrooms and I have one two bedroom.
Okay.
And that two bedroom is definitely about $2,000 more when you think about the mattress, the frame, the two nightstands. If you have a TV, the dresser. Yeah, it all adds up.
That's, I mean, it sounds like it adds up, which is why I asked, like, how much does it cost to get, into it? Because it's like, somebody be like, oh my gosh, hard eyes and glitter eyes, like, oh my gosh, it sounds like, the most amazing thing ever. But I think
Mm-hmm.
also being able to be mindful of what, how much it costs, which technically $5,000 is a low entry, to be very honest, in terms of starting a business. But yeah, I think it's good to kind of put that in perspective. You
Yeah.
also talked about your focus is more so like travel nurses. So you mentioned travel nurses, and you also mentioned like this thing about like market research. I guess when it comes to the market research, can you talk a little bit more about that? And then also, can you talk about like how that may vary based off of the state that you're in?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and real quick, business credit cards are also super helpful for people. I don't recommend relying solely on them because a lot of the factors that go into you getting business credit may or may not depend on your current credit score and or your debt to income ratio. But there are several out there for newer businesses, like the Blue Cash Card by Amex and the Chase Business Inc. Preferred Card. Those were my first two.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so just want to throw those out there. Market research. Your question for that was around like how that works and how
Yeah,
it
how does
differs.
market research work?
So basically, with market research, you're starting high level, like, okay, what city do I want to operate in? From there, ensuring that you know the rules and regulations around short term rentals for that city and if you need any permits. And then once you get that understanding, it's a matter of figuring out leveraging websites like AirDNA, Airbnb, Furnish Finder is another good one. But basically taking the culmination of this data to understand what the current demand is and how many areas um, of interest are there where you can find intersectionality. So for me, I don't rely just on being close to downtown, or I don't rely just on being near a hospital. I'm looking at like where can I basically situate myself where I have an intersection of close to downtown, close to the airport, close to a hospital, close to a school, close to the state fairgrounds. And so therefore like that basically increases my potential to be booked um, without having to rely on just one source. So that's like the demand side. And you can leverage, of course, like Google Maps for that. You can leverage, I mean, ideally, you'll start in a city that you know well, so you can basically start listing off those places of interest.
Mhm.
And on the supply side, that you can find a lot of data on AirDNA. They have a tool called a rentalizer where you can get the average nightly rate and the average occupancy rate per zip code. And that will give you a high level idea of what the potential or what the current stats are with respect to how much you could be making per night, as well as taking that with the occupancy rate, and that will give you an understanding of what your profitability could look like month to month. But with supply, I actually leverage a lot of data that's already on Airbnb. So you can literally look at take Raleigh for example, and you can look at the supply. So if you basically plug in one bedroom, one bath, one bed, entire unit apartment,
Mhm.
and it'll basically spit out how many homes match those filters. And you can even go more granular. Like I provide a lot of amenities that others may not provide. So that then decreases the supply of the type of unit that um, I'm focused on providing. And so I say all this to say, I feel like I see all this in my head, but it's basically taking all of that data to see, okay, how much competition do I have in this specific neighborhood within this city? And is this a place where I'm seeing a high demand? And you can leverage people's calendars. So what I love to do is look at other superhosts in the area and see if they are thoroughly booked throughout the next few weeks and next few months. And so what that tells me, while you can't decipher whether or not someone's dates are blocked because they're actually booked or because they may be out of town. But if I'm seeing trends for people who have multiple units and they are remaining blocked off, I can essentially make a judgment call that they are actually booked and they're super hosts and they are charging at around the same price that I am charging. So there's a lot of data out there that culminates into whole bunch of these trackers that I use in order to double, triple check that I'm making investments in the right areas.
That's amazing. And that's also sounds like a lot, but I know with the way you broke it down, it makes it easy to like digest and understand. But it's just like, cool child. But I think also in
Hope
market
so.
research, yeah, no. It makes sense. I think especially with just market research in general for any business that you're
Mhm.
in, I think it's important to look at different things. So you mentioned AirDNA, Airbnb, but I love how you use the actual tool that people post their housing on to just utilize that information to figure out how you can make yourself unique and stand out in that same area and market. So That makes
Yeah.
all the sense. Now,
Yeah.
not to get into your business, but you already put it out there. So you mentioned that you made six figures
Yeah.
in your first year. You made over $100,000, which is amazing for, first year. But this year
Yeah.
you are on your way to making $500,000. Sis, what's the secret? What's the secret? What did you do to see
Yeah.
the success in your business? What are some what do you think has worked for you over this period of time that you're able to see such success in such a short period
Yeah.
of time?
I hired a business coach. I have to shout her out because she's also a woman of God, so she's kept me anchored in like God's truth for me.
I love that.
And yeah, and like business is not easy. Like I know that there's a lot of people out there who really glamorize being an entrepreneur, but there's so much that happens in the back end where it's just like, bruh, God, are you sure this is for me? Like, give me a sign, because right now I really could just sell all of these and keep it pushing.
Listen,
But
yes,
I will say mindset has been the biggest thing, and like, and wholeheartedly being grounded and knowing that I am doing what God has called me to do in this season. And so I'll start there. More tactically, scaling has been like, I've been looking at my numbers. Like, I made in the month of December, I made what it took me to make. Wait, is that right? What it took me to make. That's not the right thing. In December, I made $28,000 in revenue just from my Airbnb business. It took me from January to June to make that same $28,000 when I only had 2 units. So as I started to scale, I would basically track, and I'm very transparent about my business. Well, my Airbnb business, not all my personal business, but my Airbnb business, I'm very transparent about that on my Instagram because I really do want people to see like the good and the challenges that come with running this business. And so every month I track my revenue that comes in and I post it. And I was going through at the end of the month and just clicking through like seeing the jumps in revenue when I actually scaled. And I know I talked about business credit at first. That has been like a tremendous vehicle for me, finding business credit cards that provide 12 months 0% APR gives me the time so I can get, for example, I can get a Amex. I'm trying to throw out a real one that like actually. So I can get a Chase Preferred 8 card for $25,000 credit. I know that I can get 5 units out of that, and I know that I'm not going to make the $25,000 back right away. But based off of my profit calculator, I know I can make that back in 4 months. And so if I have 12 months to make that back, I can breathe and I can be like, okay, let me just get the systems in order, make sure that I'm providing high quality to my guests, and I know the money is going to come. And so, yeah, I will say God, my business coach, scaling and leveraging business credit efficiently and in a way where, I'm not like, dang, I got to pay this back. Otherwise, I got to figure out this 24% interest. Like, I don't know her. We don't talk. Me and APR are not friends. So.
period. Okay, leverage. I think that is so key to what you mentioned because I do the same thing.
Yeah.
Getting 0% introduction credit cards. There's 18-month ones. There's 12
Oh,
month
for real?
ones.
Put me
Yes,
on.
yes. There's 18 city. So city. This is the
Oh,
same. Yeah, but City
okay.
Card usually has like, and I don't know if they still did it, do it post, these inflations. But
Yeah.
yeah, some of them have like 18 months of
Oh,
0% interest. So
wow.
12 month and 18, 12, 15, 18 months, like that is the best way to, like you said, have the debt there, but not have to pay any like interest on it. And if you're smart about
Mm-hmm.
it, then even if you say, okay, I need to make sure I pay this off in a year. Divide whatever your maximum amount that you maxed out is, and know that at the minimum you have to pay this amount to get, to make sure you pay it off within a year. So
That's
that is
good.
super key. Thank you for mentioning that because I have not talked about that on the podcast at all. But yes,
Yes,
that's
we
key.
love business credit.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talked about challenges, like you said, a lot of people see things on the internet and, people have these like fancy cars, they're flying off of,
The
coming off of
beds.
jets and, they got these lavish things. And it's like, oh yeah, I'm an entrepreneur. If you would just quit your 9 to 5 job and, be this entrepreneur, you too can have this
Oh my
like,
gosh.
you know,
I'm having internal reactions and I'm just like, please make it stop. And it's
you
not
know,
true.
we see it all the time, and you're just like, and you see but you see the comments, right? And people are just
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh,
Sign
like,
me up.
yeah, like, how did you do it? I want to do it too. But like you mentioned, there's like challenges there. Like,
Mhm.
entrepreneurship is not all like perfume and roses. Like, it's just not. So, what has been some of the challenges you've ran into while running your business?
I'll say the hardest one was getting my first yes from apartment complexes. Like, um, one thing that I've learned in entrepreneurship is start getting good with rejection. Like, you better start removing Breanne the person from like Breanne the business owner and understand that business is business. And so for me, and anyone who is in this space, like you're going to get several no's from apartment complexes when you're pitching your business idea to them before you get your first yes. And there were times like my fiance has been there for me, like physically with like moving stuff, but most importantly, emotionally and mentally when it comes to like this morning. I mean, I'm a Scorpio, so we be in our feelings. And it's just like, I'll really be like, babe, I don't know, but it's like, it's the power of like knowing that the rejections will come and the roadblocks will come, but knowing that like you're actually going to make the decision to overcome them. And so for me, when I first started, those first few no's, I was like, God dang, this tracker is getting red. Like I'm talking red. But once you get that first yes, it's just like wait, really? Like, I would be like, you sure? Because you also have to believe in yourself
Yeah.
before you can believe that someone else is about to believe you. And so it's challenging being like, yes, I'm in a startup space, but I know, like, I've been through thorough coaching. I know that this is a business model that is proven and it works. And here are the reasons in which you should partner with me and allow me to operate in your space and some people will get it and some people won't. And so I'll say, I started getting momentum. Like by the 10th unit, I remember I went in there and I was like, so look, I'm looking to scale my business. We are in the process of acquiring 5 more units within the next few weeks. Ideally, I'd love to be able to work with you all. You all have a beautiful community, but we gonna need some free rent. I didn't say it like that, but I basically was pitching like I know that I'm a solution to you, and I know I'm bringing something that y'all might want to consider.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, because if you think about it, you're helping apartment complexes by filling their vacancies. And so, the more units that you can come to them saying, "Hey, I'm gonna take these off your plate," the more they're gonna be like, if they're really thinking like business owners, like it's like okay. Um, so yeah, I ended up negotiating like $6,000. I'm sorry, 6 months, 6 weeks off. It ended up being about $14,000 across 5 units during my last acquisition. But Breanne, January 2022 would have been like, you did what now? Like, we're just trying to get this first yes. Um, that was a very animated way of saying getting my first yes was the biggest challenge. The second one was figuring out how to furnish and getting better and more efficient at furnishing my units and getting them up and running. And the third biggest challenge I overcame was finding reputable housekeepers that I could rely on and not having to worry about reaching out to them like, hey, there's this person checking out today. Are you going to be there? Like, we have a whole system in place where they have access to the back end of my Airbnb calendar. They know what my check-ins are, what my checkouts are. They have my SOPs, so they know what the standard operating procedures are and how they need to clean the space. They take pictures for me. And I'm like, they be charging a pretty penny, but y'all are saving so much time and giving me so much peace of mind where it's just like, have it. So those would be the three biggest challenges.
I love that. And have you ever, because you talked about like mindset of Breanne 2022 to mindset of
Hmm.
Breanne 2023, can you talk about, have you ever experienced having like a negative review or like a crazy guess and you were just kind of like, bruh, what is this? What did I get myself into?
Mm. Let's talk about last week. I was actually with a student and I was showing her how to do guest reviews.
Mhm.
And I hadn't seen this guest response yet, but this guy, usually travel nurses are like creme de la creme. Like, you'd be looking around like, did they even stay here? Because they just leave the place so clean.
Yeah.
But I had a little anomaly, and my guy ended up taking a blanket. He took the floor mat that we use in the kitchen. He took a few knives, a few forks, a few spoons, a few washcloths, and left the place an absolute mess. And so my policy, this is very important to have like your house rules on lock and ensure that like people are very aware of the expectation that you'll be holding them to. Otherwise, they're gonna have to pay up. My house rules are that regardless of how long you stay, you need to at least leave the space how you found it. And I'm not saying, sweep and mop and clean off the countertops, but yeah, food left in the fridge, in the freezer, stuff like it looked like he did a science experiment in the kitchen, and it was just like it was terrible to the point where
Right.
my cleaner had to call back up so that she could actually get through all the rest of the cleanings for the day. And so I submitted everything. Usually people are like, yeah, I know I was in the wrong. But my guy was like, you're just taking advantage of a nice guy. I didn't take anything from your spot. Your place was disgusting, this, that, and the third. And I'm
Yeah.
looking back through the pictures that my cleaners took when because they do a before picture of like, this is how the person left the space. And then they'll do an after picture of this is how we left the space for the next guest. Spotless, pristine. I would have stayed there myself. And so there's some delusional guests that you just have to. I remember I was in the middle of coaching and I was like, hold on, let me read this real quick. And I read it and I was like, okay, I'm gonna chuckle for like 5 seconds. I'm gonna feel it for like 2 seconds. I'm gonna
Yeah.
chuckle for like 5 seconds, and I'm gonna go ahead and just involve Airbnb because they have a whole air cover policy where they can pay for anything that the guest won't pay for as long as you
Oh,
don't have
that's good to know.
So, yeah, we have bad guests. We have guests who don't pay. I have one guest who didn't pay. You learn a lesson one time, you adjust, and you never make the same mistake twice. So, yeah, I mean, most of it's really just people who have a different standard of clean when they leave or steal things. But I would probably say less than 5% of my guests have given me a hard time.
Okay, well that's good to know. As I say, you might scare some people away with that story, stealing
Oh
rugs
no, it's
and forks and spoons. And
no, it's all reimbursed though because I like it's so important to document everything
yeah,
to the point where it's like, okay, say what you want, but I'm not going to spend more than 5 seconds on you. So moving on.
I love that. Okay, so now someone who's listening, like I said, they've heard you kind of like talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, the possibilities of getting into the short term rental. And so if they're
Mhm.
listening and they're just like, you know what, I'm just similar to you. I'm interested in getting started. What would you say are the first few steps to begin?
Yeah. Well, this feels like a tee up, but I don't think you know this. But I have a ebook that I put together on the 5 top things to consider before starting an Airbnb business.
No, I didn't know
Completely
that.
free. Yeah, I know. So I was like, I don't think you're hip to this, but I mean, I think through stuff like that because I think about like what I wish I had access to, what are the things that I thought about before starting this business. I won't go over all the 5, but the biggest thing is like navigating your why. Like, is your why, is it monetary? And I've learned like it's okay if people's why is monetary, but just know that like you have to have a bigger vision for that monetary goal. Like, is your goal to be able to pay your bills with your Airbnb revenue? Is your goal to be able to provide for your family X dollar amount and like let that be your vision that you're tying to versus like, man, I'm just trying to, build some passive
Right.
income because at that point you're playing yourself. So yeah, I would say the biggest thing is like getting grounded on your why so that during the good times it's like, now I remember why I'm doing this. During the bad times, all right, well, I know this sucks right now, but I'm tied to this bigger purpose. So again, I won't go through all those details, but BreanneRenee.com. Got you a free ebook on there.
And I will link
I
it into the show notes as well so
Oh,
that
thank
people
you.
can go directly. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. I would say starting there and then really being honest with yourself financially, like if you have the capability, because it takes money to make money. And as long as you at least have the funding and or the credit to be able to um, get approved for these business credit cards, then I think those are the two biggest places where you want to start. And the last thing I'll give you that's in the book is ensuring that you do your research around the regulations. So if you're in like LA, I want to reconsider. If you're in DC, depending on whether or not you're owning, you might want to reconsider. But there are places like Raleigh. Don't come here with like I'm gonna get 100 units because we gonna have some problems. But there are places where like it's a lot more relaxed, and you may just have to pay for a permit annually or biannually. But those are the three things I recommend starting with: mindset, financials, and then knowing whether or not you would even be able to operate in the locations you're considering.
I told y'all she got the keys, y'all, and not just keys in the not the physical keys. She got the keys in the mindset. Okay, and so you also offer coaching to those people who are interested in getting started. Why do you think it's important for people to learn about short-term rental?
I feel like it's important for people to learn about this because this is genuinely a place where you can actually build an additional stream of income. And it's not going to require like Uber 20,000, 30,000, $40,000 commitment. Like as we talked about earlier, starting a business with $5,000 is really not a lot when you compare it to a lot of other businesses, especially other brick and mortars where you're taking into account a lot more than that. So I would say that it's a low barrier to entry with the low capital you have to pay, but also like you could basically keep going and keep scaling until you are like, I am tired, or I'm at the point where I've hit my revenue goal. And so this is something where, of course, you aren't tied to one location. Once you figure out your process and you understand how to efficiently run this business, how to automate, and then how to scale, um, it's a playing field at this point. Like it's like now, like, do I want to go through houses? Do I want to, test out another city? Like it's fun now that I am in a place where I've like found my lane and it's just like head down. Usain Bolt in this joint, like yeah, sprinting towards that 500K. So. And that's actually stop one. Next year, my goal is to hit 1 million, and then from there, we'll realize at that point I'll be married and we'll be talking about kids, and I might, might want to figure out what's next. So we'll
No, I
see,
still
but
think
that's yeah.
it's amazing. No, I think it's very amazing to be able to say I have found my lane. I found my niche, right? Like I found my niche
Mhm.
within the space, and this is what I'm scaling to. This is what I'm on track to do, and I can see it. I think when you're clear about your vision, like everything becomes tangible. Like what you kind of mentioned earlier, it's like get used to getting the no's, but when you get that yes, it's kind of like okay, we on to something. Let's go. So I think that's just that's so key. So few questions left. This is more so of like the rapid fire questions, just like
Ooh,
the
hit
closeout
me.
questions. So they're like real quick.
Okay.
So what is one character trait you believe to be necessary to succeed in this business?
Resilience. You want me
Here,
like that short? Like
no. Expand it just a little bit. Why resilience?
I will say, like you'll have this big vision for like what you aspire towards, and no matter which way you twist it, like there are going to be roadblocks along the way. And it's really a matter of like knowing that these things are not happening to you, they're happening for you to help strengthen you for when you do have 5+ units, when you do have 10+ units. Um, and so, yeah, that's something I'm actually preaching to myself right now. Like, that's something that you have to be okay with, not having a picture perfect business in front of you.
I wholeheartedly agree. Okay. Looking back on your journey, what's one thing you wish you would have known in the beginning that could have helped you in the early stages as you've grown?
Hmm. That 18 months of 0% APR, that would have been cute. Um, yeah, I think honestly though, like access to funding, I wish
Yeah.
I knew more about that at the beginning because once I figured that out, I was like, oh shoot, let me not catch myself with like 5 credit cards down the line. But nah, I think business funding is everything when you are looking to scale.
Yeah.
So not feeling like I had to just pull everything from savings or
Yeah. Yeah, you even just gave me
yeah.
some ideas. You reminded me of some own things, and I'm like, all right, that is true.
Yeah.
So last question. What's a tool or resource you swear by that helps you or your business?
Ooh. Only one?
You can name two.
Okay. One would be Sign Now.
Hmm.
I love this tool because when you start your Airbnb business, you will learn that Airbnb will want a piece of that money. So, like, let's say you make $100 for a reservation, Airbnb will take 3% of that from your side.
Oh,
Um, They will also take about 10 to 15% from the guest side. So you
okay.
could find yourself in a situation where you're getting $97, but the guest has paid like $115. And so what that does is when you multiply that by 10 or multiply that by 20, what you see is that um, you'll be able to see basically how much a guest pays and how much you actually get and just be like, y'all are thieves. And so with Sign Now, what you can do, like I have a lot of return guests, partially because I be checking in like, hey, what's your reason for staying with me? And I want to make sure that like I'm doing my due diligence on the front end.
Yeah.
But I have a lot of travel nurses who are like, hey, I have another contract. Do you have another unit available? Or business travelers, love business travelers. Hey, I'm back in town for another project. Instead of sending them to Airbnb, they have my contact information, and at that point, I'm giving them a link for a direct referral. I'm sorry, a direct booking, so
Okay.
that if they're paying $25,000, I'm getting $25,000. Minus, there's like some processing fees with QuickBooks,
Right.
which is what I use to invoice, but it's not an additional 15% for them and a deduction of 3% for me.
Yeah.
So Sign Now is great because that's what I use to send out all of my leasing agreements to people when we do direct booking. So that's number one. And number two, it's so funny. Both of these are aligned to direct bookings, but QuickBooks is great for all things invoicing, both with my cleaners, with my guests, and just ensuring that we can review the numbers at the end of the quarter because the numbers don't lie and they truly will help you dictate where it makes sense to continue operating versus where it makes sense for you to chuck up the deuces and be like, I'm going to repurpose this furniture into another unit that's going to be increasing my profitability.
I love
So
that. As an
I think
accountant
those are
by day, I can wholeheartedly agree with understanding your numbers. That is key to
mm-hmm.
any business. So thank you for sharing that. Well, I don't know about y'all, but I personally will be rewatching this interview and taking my notes. But like she said, she does coaching. Number one, she has an ebook. If you're trying to figure out if you're ready for this and ready to, get into the short term rental business, she already has a free ebook, which I said will be linked in the show notes. And you also have a course, if I'm not mistaken, that is coming soon.
Yeah.
So if you guys are interested, all of her information is going to be in the show notes so that you guys can get access to her and learn more about, what she does and how she does it, and pick her brain, but not for free because we always pay things over here. So
and I'll also add real quick, if it's okay. For those who don't like the course route, like you're like, I need results quickly. I need you to just give me what would take me 3 to 4 hours to watch, and I want you to spend 3 to 4 hours with me today, break it down for me, and basically navigate my specific pain points. I do also offer VIP days, so that's going to be one-on-one, me and you. We're going to figure out what exactly your goals are, how to get there, provide you with a roadmap, and there's an extended period of time where I'll be there to help you execute on what we build out. So that's another present day option as well. But yes, the course is about to be lit. I'm very excited to roll it out. It's been my baby for the past few months now, but those who do get the ebook, you'll also have access to my email list, so you'll be able to be in the know when we are ready to drop that in April. So yeah.
Awesome. And what is if people want to follow you or anything like that, what platform are you on? What's the best way for people to kind of stay connected to you?
I am on Instagram and recently the Clock app, TikTok. My username for both of them is Breanne Renee __. So BREANNERENEE yes, I actually hired a social media strategist to help me provide content to y'all daily. So I'm very excited for all that's to come and just providing value, ensuring that people are in the know about the beauty of this business.
Yes, awesome. Because it's important. Like I said, y'all, this season is about bringing in people who can help you guys generate revenue by not necessarily creating a business from scratch, but, taking things and repurposing it. So here you are. All right, Breanne. Well, it was a pleasure having you. Yeah. I absolutely enjoyed it. I know that the listeners are going to enjoy it or are enjoying it. So thank you so much. All right, guys. Talk to you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Side Hustlepreneur podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to rate and review the podcast. And if you haven't subscribed, what are you waiting for? To keep up with me outside of the podcast, you can follow me on Instagram at The Side Hustle Podcast. Or you can join the Side Hustle family by subscribing to my weekly newsletter at thesidehustlepreneur.com. See you next time.